everybody, welcome to my channel.
Malcolm Young was a legendary Australian guitarist and songwriter best known as the co-founder, rhythm guitarist, and driving force behind the iconic rock band AC/DC. Born on January 6, 1953. In Glasgow, Scotland, Malcolm and his family emigrated to Sydney, Australia, in 1963. Along with his younger brother Angus Young, he formed AC/DC in 1973, crafting a raw, powerful sound that would come to define hard rock. Unlike many lead guitarists, Malcolm chose to remain in the background, focusing on rhythm guitar, a role he revolutionized. His playing was tight, aggressive, and unrelenting, often credited as the backbone of AC/DC's thunderous sound. Tracks like Back in Black, Highway to Hell, and You Shook Me All Night Long feature his signature riffs that are both deceptively simple and incredibly powerful. Malcolm also played a central role in songwriting, co-writing nearly every classic AC/DC song with Angus. His approach to music was all about groove, precision, and letting the song, not ego, shine. He was known for his work ethic, no-nonsense attitude, and deep commitment to the band's integrity and sound. In 2014, Malcolm retired from the band due to health issues, later revealed to be dementia. He passed away on November 18, 2017, at the age of 64. Despite his quiet public persona, Malcolm's influence on rock music is immense. He is remembered as one of the greatest rhythm guitarists in rock history, foundational, unshakable, and irreplaceable. Malcolm Young. The relentless engine behind AC/DC. Malcolm Mitchell Young was not a flamboyant frontman or a guitar virtuoso in the traditional sense, but he was something far rarer and more essential. The heartbeat of a band. As the co-founder and rhythm guitarist of AC/DC, Malcolm Young laid the foundation for one of the most successful and enduring rock bands of all time. Early life and formation of AC/DC. Born on January 6, 1953, in Glasgow, Scotland, Malcolm was the sixth of 8 children. In 1963, the Young family immigrated to Australia to escape post-war hardship. Malcolm and his younger brother Angus were inseparable as kids, and both were deeply influenced by their older brother George Young, who achieved fame with the easy beats, Friday on My Mind. In 1973, Malcolm and Angus formed AC/DC in Sydney, naming the band after the abbreviation for alternating current, direct current, seen on a sewing machine. They wanted something that reflected the band's raw energy, and it fit perfectly. The power of rhythm. While Angus took on the role of the duck-walking, school-uniformed lead guitarist, Malcolm stayed back, but what he did on rhythm guitar was revolutionary. He stripped rock and roll down to its most potent, primal elements. His right-hand picking was fierce and economical, his timing flawless. Malcolm created riffs that were tight, punchy, and unforgettable, driving songs like Hell's Bells, Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap, and For Those About to Rock. He used a Gretsch Jet Firebird, often modified, and his amp settings were simple but loud. Malcolm was also meticulous in the studio, known for doing dozens of takes until everything sounded just right. He once said, "You can't mess with the basics. You've got to have that drive, that feeling." Back in Black and Immortality. After the tragic death of lead singer Bon Scott in 1980, many thought AC/DC might be finished. But Malcolm pushed the band to carry on. They recruited Brian Johnson and released Back in Black, which went on to sell over 50 million copies worldwide, one of the highest-selling albums in history. The opening riff of the title track, written by Malcolm, is instantly recognizable and among the most iconic in rock. Quiet strength and leadership. Malcolm led the band with quiet authority. He wasn't interested in fame or flash. His job, in his own words, was keeping everything in line. He focused on the groove, the rhythm, and the big picture. While Angus was the face of AC/DC, Malcolm was its soul. He managed business decisions, protected the band's sound, and demanded consistency and excellence. Declining health and legacy in 2014, Malcolm was forced to retire due to complications from dementia, which had begun to affect his memory and ability to play. His nephew Stevie Young stepped in to fill his role on rhythm guitar. Even though he was no longer touring, Malcolm's presence remained at the core of the band's spirit. He passed away on November 18, 2017, at the age of 64. Tributes poured in from musicians around the world, from Dave Grohl to Eddie Van Halen, all citing Malcolm as a titan of rock rhythm guitar. Enduring influence. Malcolm Young redefined what it meant to be a rhythm guitarist. He didn't chase the spotlight, he was the spotlight, whether the audience realized it or not. Generations of musicians have tried to emulate his power, precision, and restraint, but few have come close. He wasn't loud in personality, but his guitar spoke volumes. And it still does, every time an AC/DC song comes on. Malcolm Young, the unshakable rock at the heart of rock and roll. Malcolm Young wasn't just the rhythm guitarist of AC/DC, he was AC/DC. While the world often celebrated the explosive solos of his brother Angus or the soaring vocals of Bon Scott and Brian Johnson, it was Malcolm's relentless precision and unyielding commitment to groove that powered the band from the shadows. An architect of sound, Malcolm didn't write guitar parts, he built structures. Every AC/DC song was constructed on the bedrock of his riffs. His playing was clean, powerful, and almost architectural in its efficiency. In a genre often defined by excess, Malcolm championed discipline. He had an uncanny sense of when to leave space, when to slam a chord, when to punch the rhythm. He understood the power of silence between the beats just as much as the sound itself. His technique didn't rely on speed or flair. Instead, it focused on groove, tone, and relentless timing. His signature sound came from his 1963 Gretsch Jet Firebird, stripped down to bare essentials, plugged into a Marshall amp, with everything dialed in just right, not for attention, but for feel. A reluctant hero, Malcolm never chased fame. He didn't want the spotlight. He once told an interviewer, "I don't need the glory. I just need the band to sound right." He rarely gave interviews, often letting Angus or others speak for the band publicly. But within AC/DC, Malcolm's voice was final. He was the de facto bandleader, quiet but commanding, firm but fair. He handled business decisions, helped select producers, and was often the final judge of what made it onto an album. Even Angus Young, known for his larger-than-life stage persona, has repeatedly said, "Malcolm was the boss. Always has been, always will be." The brotherhood, Malcolm and Angus. The dynamic between Malcolm and Angus Young was unlike anything else in rock music. There was no rivalry, only trust. Malcolm didn't mind standing back and letting his younger brother take the lead on stage, knowing full well that the foundation he laid allowed Angus to shine. Angus, in turn, knew that everything he did was only as strong as Malcolm's support. They co-wrote nearly every AC/DC song together, often jamming for hours until something clicked. Malcolm had an extraordinary filter for quality. If a riff didn't groove immediately, it was scrapped. No overthinking, no filler. Every AC/DC album bears the stamp of that shared vision: raw, punchy, no-nonsense rock and roll. Personal character and work ethic. Malcolm Young was a hard worker, and he expected the same from others. He was known to run tight rehearsals, demanding perfection not out of ego but because the music mattered. If a band member showed up out of sync or off-tempo, Malcolm would call it out bluntly, but always in service of the song. He also battled personal demons. In the late 1980s, Malcolm briefly stepped away from the band to deal with alcohol addiction. Rather than spiral out of control, he addressed it head-on, got sober, and returned stronger, playing on The Razor's Edge, 1990, which became one of the band's biggest albums. The final years when dementia began to take hold in the early 2010s. It became clear that Malcolm could no longer tour or record. Yet even as the disease robbed him of his memory, the band remained fiercely loyal to him. His nephew Stevie Young, who had filled in for Malcolm during the 1988 tour, stepped in again, this time permanently. Malcolm was still listed in the credits on Rock or Bust, 2014. And many of the riffs used had come from earlier writing sessions with him. The band never tried to replace him in spirit, only to honor him. Legacy and reverence. Malcolm Young's influence cannot be overstated. His approach to rhythm guitar has been studied by countless musicians, from Metallica's James Hetfield to Foo Fighters' Dave Grohl. He showed that power comes from restraint, that the rhythm guitar is not a background instrument but the very core of a song's identity. When he passed away in 2017, rock lost one of its true foundations. He didn't have to say much. His riffs did the talking, and they still do. He's survived by a legacy of riffs that will never fade. Songs that have become rituals at parties, sporting events, and road trips around the world. When you hear that opening riff to Back in Black, or the chug of It's a Long Way to the Top, you're hearing Malcolm Young's soul. He was not just a guitarist. He was the engine, the spine, the thunder beneath the lightning. Malcolm Young, the relentless spirit of rock. Malcolm Young wasn't a man of many words, but every riff he played was a statement of pure intent. He didn't need to be flashy or loud to command respect. He simply played harder, tighter, and more honestly than just about anyone else in rock music. In a world of egos and showmanship, Malcolm was substance over spectacle. Musical identity. Simplicity as power. In the pantheon of rock guitarists, many chase complexity, speed, technique, finger acrobatics. Malcolm did the opposite. He played less and it hit harder. His riffs were distilled to their purest form, often built on just a few chords, yet their groove, tone, and placement made them unforgettable. It wasn't what he played, it was how and when he played it. Take Whole Lotta Rosie, a chugging riff that hits with the force of a freight train. Or Riff Raff, where Malcolm's tight rhythm guitar creates a pulse so hypnotic you don't even notice that it's built on just a few chord changes. He understood that rock and roll is about feel more than flash. That's why his riffs don't age, they breathe. And he rarely, if ever, deviated from what worked. Malcolm's style stayed constant across decades. In his words, you don't have to be the best at what you do, you just have to be doing what you do. That philosophy became AC/DC's trademark. While trends came and went, punk, grunge, hair metal, nu metal, AC/DC stood firm, thanks largely to Malcolm's creative leadership. They didn't follow waves, they were the wave. The bond with the fans. AC/DC wasn't just a band, it was a lifestyle. And Malcolm Young was its heartbeat. He never courted fame, but fans loved him for that. At concerts, Malcolm stood off to the side, near the amps, unbothered by spotlight, pounding away at his Gretsch with unwavering focus. In those moments, fans knew, that's the guy holding it all together. There was a quiet pride in his stance, a kind of defiant humility that fans connected with. He was the ultimate anti-rockstar. No drama, no gimmicks, just raw sound and dedication. Industry praise and pure respect. When Malcolm passed away in 2017, the outpouring of respect from the rock community was enormous. Musicians from across genres recognized what he'd contributed. He may not have been a household name to casual listeners, but to real musicians, Malcolm was sacred. Here's what some legends had to say. Dave Grohl, Foo Fighters, without Malcolm Young, there is no AC/DC. And without AC/DC, there's no rock and roll. Eddie Van Halen, he was the heart and soul of AC/DC. James Hetfield, Metallica, thank you for the music and inspiration. There is only one Malcolm Young. It's rare to find a guitarist who redefined a role. Malcolm didn't just play rhythm, he reshaped it. After him, rhythm guitar was no longer just a supporting part. It became a weapon. A family of music. Malcolm came from a family that helped shape the Australian and international music scenes. His brother George Young, of the Easy Beats, co-produced AC/DC's early albums, helping craft their signature sound. The Young family didn't just make music, they made history. George and Malcolm's legacy as producers is equally remarkable. Their production work on albums like Powerage and Let There Be Rock ensured that the raw power of the band was captured without dilution. When Malcolm stepped down from AC/DC due to dementia, the band could have folded. But Angus insisted that his legacy continue, by asking their nephew Stevie Young to take his place. It wasn't just a decision about music, it was a family decision. That's how central Malcolm was to their identity. The final echo. Though Malcolm could no longer play in his final years, his presence was felt on the 2020 album Power Up. Recorded as a tribute to him after his death, the riffs were co-written with him during earlier sessions, and the album is widely considered one of the band's strongest in years. Angus said of the album, "This record is for Malcolm. It's a tribute to him and everything he stood for." And that's the thing about Malcolm Young, he wasn't just a player. He was a principle, a standard, a sound that defined a band and influenced a genre. His playing is immortal not because it was complex, but because it was true. Malcolm Young lives on even though he's gone. You'll still find Malcolm Young in every garage band that starts with a riff. Every teenager who picks up a guitar and learns TNT, every packed stadium that screams the opening chords of Thunderstruck. You'll hear him in the silence between the beats, in the raw hum of an amp warming up. He wasn't just in the band. He was the band, forever.
Bye bye. Thanks for watching.